Hey, everybody, I'm Amy,
And I'm Paul Hernandez.
and welcome to the Comics Hall. We missed you guys last week, but we have an excellent show lined up for you today where we will be covering all of the books from Wednesday, January 27th, which is today. But we are also going to be joined by a special guest in a little bit. You may have heard of him, Gem Mint Collectibles. But for now, we are joined on screen by our lovely moderator, Jasmine.
Hi, welcome everybody. We're live in a whole bunch of places: Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Join us anywhere that you want to.
Nice.
So you guys can interface with Jasmine during the show. She will be taking your questions, comments, concerns. If you have something you want to shout out to us. Compliments. Yes, that's the one I always forget. Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
But yes, so we've got a lot of stuff to cover for you guys. Thank you for joining us this week. Sorry about the power outages we had last week, but we are rolling right along with this week's books. But we do have some news. There's been a ton of news. We got Marvel, DC, Image. Everybody's hitting all at once. So Paul, do you want to get us started with the updates for the week?
Sure do. Let's go over to the DC Universe because as of January 21st, the DC Universe app has relaunched as DC Universe Infinite. This newly revamped platform is comic focused, featuring a library of over 25,000 titles. Yes, 25,000 titles from DC, Vertigo, Black Label, and Milestone Media. New titles will hit the Infinite Library 6 months after publish date because they got to compete with Marvel in that aspect, and I don't blame them. And digital first titles will arrive 3 months from launch. There will be upgraded library and customization features, though this does mean the DC Universe television and movie slate is no longer hosted on the app. And again, some of you might already be aware, a lot of that might already live or will live on HBO Max. But current DC Universe subscribers can continue to use their same login credentials, and a new subscription is $7.99 a month, and the year is now $74.99. I was very, very excited when that happened. So much so I was like showing Amy, like, Amy, look. It was very exciting.
And you can that customization, you can even change the home screen widget to a number of different characters. I saw they previewed. You could have Punchline on your phone screen if you want to keep you updated on comics. Now, hopping over to the Marvel universe, Marvel's going to have a bit of a rebirth. But not quite in the same way that DC Comics did. Marvel has revealed more information, plus an animated teaser trailer for their mysterious new event called Heroes Reborn. Well, I guess it's a little less mysterious now because we know that this is written by Jason Aaron with art by Ed McGuinness, who you might recognize as a duo that are currently tackling the Avengers. I know that there are some rotating artists, but Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness are the kind of core of the Avengers book right now. And the Heroes Reborn event will see a world without the Avengers, as the vampire hunter Blade wakes up in a new reality where the Squadron Supreme are Earth's mightiest heroes. If you're seeing characters that look a little bit like Wonder Woman and Batman, that's actually Power Princess and Nighthawk. So best come correct. In this new reality, Captain America never got off the ice, Thor never lifted his hammer, and Phil Coulson might have just made a deal with the devil. This is going to be spinning out. Yeah, you know. Phil Coulson's always doing crazy stuff. But this is spinning out of the Enter the Phoenix event, as the Phoenix Force will burn the world to ash and rebirth a new Marvel universe. There are teaser images of new characters like Silver Witch and Dr. Juggernaut. We got some mashup villains going on, and more on Marvel's blog. And Heroes Reborn will begin in May. There's currently no news on whether it's a line-wide, why do I always say that? Line-wide publishing event, or if it's just going to affect the Avengers titles with some new spin-offs, but we're going to get more information on that when they release their May solicitations. We just got the April solicitations last week, though.
Yep. As we always say, when we know, you'll know. So moving over to Image. Image Comics has announced that Eisner Award-winning artist Michael Walsh is teaming up with an all-star, like a true all-star list of writers for a new horror anthology series set in a shared supernatural timeline called The Silver Coin. Writers Chip Zdarsky, Kelly Thompson, Ed Brisson, and Jeff Lemire will each pen a new issue of the anthology, and all stories will be connected by the presence of a cursed silver coin. The first issue launches in April, as Zdarsky and Walsh tackle the tale of a failing 1978 rock band whose luck changes when they find the cursed coin. Sorry. Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, they were sort of teasing that image on Twitter for a little bit, and they would just slowly unveil a new name and a new name. And honestly, it's a murderer's row, quite possibly, literally, of talent on that book. So we're very excited for that.
And I'm looking forward to that because, as the solicit states, each of the stories is separate, but they are connected by the common theme. But this is
Right.
a series where you could possibly just pick up one issue that is maybe being penned by your favorite writer, and you don't
Mhm.
have to pick up the rest. But as for me, I will be picking up every single issue because it all sounds fantastic, and I love every single one of those writers on the list. Speaking of
Yes.
writers, we love our last piece of news today is a fun one. Today, I mean, they're all fun, but today, Source Point Press has published the first issue of a new mature rated fantasy miniseries called The Eighth Immortal. And we are telling you this because it was going to be on our AIM list today. I still will post up some information on our social channels about it, but we wanted to highlight it as part of the news because the series is written by Jacob Murray, who worked with Tom Gilliland to write the Court of the Dead Shadows of the Underworld graphic novel for Sideshow. The Eighth Immortal series follows the fraught life of Kuripan, that one of 7 immortals who walks the earth, who must keep humanity safe from an ancient prophecy that says that there are never allowed to be 8 immortals in the world. The art for the Eighth Immortal is by Alice Lee Barnes, and you're not seeing it on the screen right now, but there is a variant cover by Gracie Bifolco, who is the art print program manager at Sideshow. And now, this comic is not affiliated with Sideshow in any way, but we just really wanted to celebrate a Court of the Dead alum making his creator-owned comics debut, and there's some love from the art print program in there as well.
Yes.
If your store didn't order copies because this is a very small publisher, you should definitely check with them. If
Mhm.
this is something that you would be interested in, you can still order it. And all 4 issues have been solicited, so you can pre-order the whole series right now.
Mhm.
And I got to read the first issue early, and then of course I read it again today when I picked it up. It is beautiful. It makes use of selective spot coloring and stuff, which is really cool. But if you're a fan of Mercy by Mirka Andolfo or any of Mirka Andolfo's other work, Alice Lee Barnes's sort of anime type style really has reminiscent themes to Mirka Andolfo's work, and I just think that there's a really fun fantasy story going on here. And
Mhm.
again, I say it's mature; it is rated mature. There's explicit content in the comic, but highly recommend you check that out, especially if you loved Court of the Dead, Shadows of the Underworld, and if you haven't read Shadows of the Underworld, you should also check that one out because that is a comic available from Sideshow.
Yes.
So, enough Sideshow love here. I mean, it's always time for Sideshow love, but that's really cool. Congratulations to Jacob and Alice for the launch of the Eighth Immortal. We're going to give you our rapid fire round
Mhm.
right now since we are changing up the format of today's show a little bit. So we're going to cover the books that we read this week. Paul, I know we wanted to break it down by publisher. Do we want to still do that, or do we want to just kind of roll into the
Let's just roll off our own list here, Amy. Do you want to kick us off with what you picked up this week? I know it was a bit of a smaller week for you.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a smaller week, kind of Marvel heavy. So of course I got the Eighth Immortal #1. I also got We Only Find Them When They're Dead, which
Mhm.
I can never quite get all out at once, but that's from Boom Studios. And then from Marvel, I picked up X-Men #17, Strange Academy #7,
Mhm.
Excalibur #17, Daredevil 26, and Captain Marvel
Nice.
#25. And I did want to call out very specially this week, as well as the last couple of weeks, Marvel's been putting out their Alien versus Heroes variants. And
Oh,
I picked
yes.
up specifically the Russell Dodderman X-Men cover with Jean and Scott fighting the Alien Queen, but the creme de la creme of the Alien covers, Captain Marvel by Jamie McKelvey with Carol Danvers in a flight suit. With Goose or Chewie or Jonesy, whichever of the many cats that you would
Yeah,
consider that to
all
be,
the cats.
being stalked through the halls of a spaceship by a xenomorph. That is just the one.
Yeah, it's a
If
great cover.
you, yeah, just fantastic.
So over on my list, a bigger week than I originally thought it was going to be, but that's just how it goes. So I picked up as well X-Men 17, Daredevil #26, Wolverine #9, which is incredible, Fantastic Four #28, Captain Marvel 25, Strange Academy #7, Dark Detective. Sorry, moving over to DC, Dark Detective #2, Batman, Superman #1. Again, these are future state titles. Suicide Squad #1, Superman Imperious Lex. Sorry, I wrote it down as Rex, but I know that that's wrong. Imperious Lex from Future State, and then over. I also picked up We Only Find Them When They're Dead #5, and as if you couldn't guess, Department of Truth #5, because that book is incredible and it's terrifying and it's everything I love. So yeah, we did have some crossover as well on our pools as we normally do, only on the Marvel side this time.
Surprisingly
yeah,
so. This is the first week in a couple that I haven't had a future state book. I've been so greatly enjoying the future state titles, and I look forward to adding more DC to my pull list once that event shakes out. But great week all around.
yeah,
We've got some new series launching. We only find them when we're
there
we
you
only
go.
find them when they're dead. That's the end of the arc, end of the first arc. Big explosive ending there. Just beautiful stuff. And then, of course, with Daredevil in the Marvel side, we've got the kickoff of Elektra's new tenure as Daredevil, and we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good
It was
stuff.
yeah, it was great. But so that's what we picked up. But now we are going to bring on a friend that you might all know, one Mr. Gem Mint, who has picked up those books and then some. So if you will all please welcome Mr. Gem Mint.
Woo!
What's up, man?
What's going on, Paul? How you doing, Amy?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us.
Man,
Well-
I had a pretty big haul this week.
Oh, I was gonna say,
So-
I'm glad you picked up a couple books. I was like, hey man, we're doing a show. Pick up, I'm glad you had one or two books.
You got more books than the hall on the comics hall. Oh my goodness.
And interestingly enough, I didn't have that much Marvel. I think I only had like 4 Marvel books
Right?
with Future State. They're cranking out a lot of titles, a couple of Image and Boom stuff, but it was a pretty good week for comics.
Yeah. Do you wanna give us some insight on some of your favorite books that you picked up this week?
Daredevil,
Oh.
26, Chip Zdarsky. This was my pick of the week. So some of you guys watching may know I do a weekly comic book haul Wednesday mornings, and I give a pick of the week. And this was it by far. Just the most fun. Had so much going on with Daredevil in jail, with Elektra masquerading as Daredevil, with King in Black and Null happening simultaneously. So it was just a fun issue.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great book, and I think that book's been featured a couple of times on this show, specifically because of how it feels like how much has changed and how much has happened since the first issue. It just feels like it's an entirely different book, but you're still within the same world. So I'm glad to see you also have great taste.
Highly recommend Zdarsky's run on Daredevil. And then, man, I'm really digging Dark Detective over here. I have trouble saying that. Dark Detective.
Oh yeah,
Future State, man. This is issue 2. This is what's going on with Bruce Wayne in this future state world that's being ran by the magistrate, the peacekeeper, kind of like the task force assassins or enforcers for the magistrate, and a great backup story from Red Hood too. So if you're a Jason Todd fan.
oh yeah.
That's one of those double hitter books that you guys are paying a little bit more for, but you're getting multiple stories included in that. That's something I think that's fantastic that Future State's been able to do that with so many characters and stories, kind of packaging them together. And then it's almost like somebody might have come in for Batman and then get a little surprise with maybe they're not as familiar with Red Hood. I know that I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, Wonder Woman Immortal, we had the same thing with Diana Prince leading the book, and then we had a Nubia backup story as well. So you're getting a lot for your money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
some double headers, some triple headers. There's been some where I didn't like the main story, but the backup saved it, and vice versa. So there's definitely a little something there for everyone. And we got to give some love to this is Boom, right? Yeah, Boom Studio. Something's Killing the Children. I think everyone who's reading this has been loving this book, James Tynion in the 4th, and I really like how this one ended. Now I feel like the plot is just progressing here, and we're learning how Erica Slaughter is going to combat these monsters that have seemingly overrun this small town. So dark, gritty artwork. It's like your children's nightmare come to life, but it's a fun book.
Yeah, Something is Killing the Children is a Comics Hall favorite as well. I know we got a lot of fans in the audience who love it. I'm personally trade waiting, but it is getting harder to trade wait just because that is such a killer series. And I do know the first 2 volumes are out right now. Love Erica Slaughter. Love that mask that she's got going on. Just a fantastic character. And I think she reminds me of Elsa Bloodstone from Marvel Comics, who I think is one of Marvel's most underutilized characters with the potential for everybody loves a good monster slayer. So if you're one of those fans, definitely Something is Killing the Children. It's so good. And James Tynion is just everywhere these days.
Midas touch. It really does.
Right? What's he do? Because he was doing Batman. He's on a little bit of a break right now, but he's also doing Department of Truth as well, right?
Department of Truth. He just wrapped up Wind, which was
Wind,
his
right?
it was a 5-ish. It was originally supposed to be a graphic novel, and then he chopped it up and it worked as a single issue.
That's right.
And then he has his horror digital magazine called Razor Blades, which you should all check out. It's like $1.99 for like the whole issue, really. You can get it in physical print, but it's getting increasingly harder and harder to find that book in physical print. But it's called Razor Blades if you're a horror fan and you're a comic book fan, and of course if you're a JT4 fan, as just myself and no one else likes to call him. If you're
I've never heard that, but I love it.
Nice, I've got one.
Because it's always like, is it Tinyin or Tinian? He's got his little imprint is Tiny Onion, so I think it's Tinyin, but JT4, but I'll try that.
I think it's pronounced James Tiny Onion the Fourth. it might be that, yeah.
We're gonna have to get a second opinion on that one.
So the question is, who's the hardest working writer in comics? Is it James Tynion? Is it Donny Cates? Is it Scott Snyder?
Kelly Thompson?
Oh yeah,
my goodness. Yeah, there's people rotating in and out, and you just wonder, like, how do they have all the time and the ideas and the ability to keep all of these character voices distinct? I mean, yeah, seriously, we were just talking about Donny Cates seems to have something every single week, but Tynion is one of those people who just keeps coming up as well, and Chip Zdarsky's getting up there. I know he's got Daredevil, and he's going to be working on this Silver Coin anthology that we mentioned in the news segment, and then I know that they're reprinting soon his Afterlift. Just crazy stuff going on with all these incredible writers, and I know we don't get to see the artists repeat as often in a month because they are so focused on these 22-page books and stuff, but it's great when people have consistent and plentiful comic book output.
And not to forget Stillwater that he's also writing right now.
That's
which
right.
Stillwater.
It's great. And so I think that you asked a great question, Jim, because one of the things it's tricky with you have someone like JT4 who's got all of these stories, and like Amy said, all of these character voices to manage, but also all of these publishers that you've got to gauge, like the tone, the temperature of like what they're doing. Is it consistent? Like that's got to be so difficult. So I mean, I'd say right now in this the age of comic books right now in the pandemic, like they're all the hardest working because they're just grinding right now. But yeah, I mean, having to jump probably from publisher to publisher, like the Marvel voice is much different than the Image voice. So I don't know. That's a question for everyone out there watching. Like, I mean, who do you all think is the hardest working writer specifically right now in comics? We would love to know.
Yeah,
that's tricky.
Stuff.
I mean, so Jem, you picked up quite a bit. Is there anything that because I mean, you had heard backstage all of the books that we picked up. Is there anything that we didn't mention that you think that everyone out there should be picking up or reading, or stuff that you're reading?
Yeah, I think Strange Adventures by Tom King is really picking up. I think it's issue 8 out of 12 right now. And Tom King, he kind of, you'll be confused at first. It's almost like Jonathan Hickman, but once we get towards the end is when everything starts kind of unraveling, and that's where we're at now. And I'm really digging Strange Adventures, which is on DC Black Label. I'm really, really digging this Batman The Adventures Continues, which is like basically the Batman animated series in comic book form.
Oh, right.
But new stories. Great stuff in these books.
Yeah.
But yeah,
those are awesome. Yeah, that all that Tom King stuff, it's even like with his The Vision, like it reads well individually, but when you've got to wait for some stuff. And I think Strange Adventures also sort of, for me, suffered from being hit with the pandemic, and you had to wait an extra 3 months for an issue, and Tom King reads so much better like back to back.
True. It might be a good trade weight or a little oversized hardcover.
Yeah.
I think though that DC, more than any other publisher, and I think because it is mostly a big 2 format, DC has found such success with those maxi series where they say you are getting 12 issues. We have given the writer 12 issues to explore this story with the artist. Same for me with Far Sector. I just checked my list for next week's books, and Far Sector number 10 is coming up, and I'm like, oh my god, that's 10 out of 12. We're almost done with Joe Mullane, and I love that book so much. But DC has found exceptional success. I loved Greg Rucka's Lois Lane series, and then knowing that you're getting those 12 issues really gives them it's almost 2 arcs. It's a little more than 2 typical comic book arcs would be, but it really gives them room to kind of grow and breathe with the story, and I love that format. I think more publishers should do the maxi series format.
Totally.
Yeah, I think especially last year, they really showed that they were successful with miniseries, maxi series. DC Black Label was doing a lot of that stuff. I love Joker Smile, and all the Jeff Lemire stuff last year was great. So yeah, they really they found their niche with that.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
totally. I mean, and they are definitely I think perfecting that. I mean, it always leads to the the question, like, who do you want to see next in that format? I mean, there are so many
Right.
characters that lead themselves to, maybe they're not, the Supermans, the Batmans, but they do deserve these like smaller, minuscule stories. And Adam Strange having a story, like, I would have never have thought, like, I mean, I
Right.
I don't know my Marvel like you two, but like seeing Adam Strange getting his own book, I was like, it just absolutely no way. But all it takes is I think also having that deadline of knowing this will end is nice, because you can sort of see it and really predict that it will wrap up. So I mean, yeah, that's a great pick, man. I always forget about how good that book is, but it's because it's in the middle, so we never really want to tell people like start picking this up right now, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's right in the middle of like a crazy arc.
At this point, you might as well wait for the collected edition. But
Yeah.
that's funny about the character selection, because Tom King, that seems to be his thing, because he did it with Vision or Mr. Miracle, right? So it's like
Mhm.
all of these like secondary characters, maybe tertiary, and bringing them to the forefront.
Yeah, the Vision specifically, that was coming out when I worked in a comic book store, and that is one of the greatest regrets of my life, not picking that up as it was coming out, because I doubted the formula, and I just didn't
Oh
know. I was
man,
like, seriously, the Vision right now? Like, what could that possibly be about? And it ended up being one of my favorite comic books of the last decade.
yeah,
I wrote a paper in college about it. Like, it's just one of those books that was just like, wow, that's it. It redefined, I think, what you can do with the art form.
yeah, that was a great run. I love the wife. Was it Viv? It was.
Yeah.
It was
Or
great.
Viv is the daughter, Virginia is the wife, which is funny because they also
That's it.
moved to Fairfax, Virginia, so I kept getting that mixed up. And then
Yeah, yeah.
Vin, the son, it was just, and then Sparky the dog. Like, who doesn't love Sparky the
And then
dog?
it's like WandaVision is not based off of it, but it feels very similar with that kind of like
Mhm.
sitcom, white picket fence household kind of thing. I don't know. It feels
Yeah.
like Tom King's vision.
Oh yeah, the happy domestic until something goes weird, and then
Yeah.
everybody wants to go back to normal. And I think the Vision series even got like a tiny little reference in the animated intro for WandaVision or episode
Oh,
2, because when they're going through the floorboards, you can see like the dog's bones, and then you can or like the
Right.
like a dog bone would eat, not the dog's bone. Um, and then the Grim Reaper's cowl that ends
Right.
up in the backyard somehow in that series. Just so good, so clever. That's my number one recommendation for people who are like, "What the heck's going on in WandaVision?" I'm like, "I don't know, but you should check out this series."
and Jem and Amy, if you don't mind, it looks like we do have a question from someone over on YouTube that I think I'm gonna let, as you two are definitely a bigger Marvel fans than I am, so I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and tackle this. But Jazz, do you want to go ahead and let us know what that question is?
Yeah, so Otto Talks Marvel Comics from YouTube wants to know, what are your thoughts on the just announced Heroes Reborn series
Mm.
from Marvel?
Awesome, great question. Thank you, Otto.
Cool.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Like I learned a lot from watching the intro of this video. I was like, okay, that's what the heroes were born. That's what the Doctor Doom Juggernaut thing is all about, right? I mean, I know the Heroes Reborn from the 90s, and it was kind of like a reboot of the Marvel universe. I don't think that's what this is going to be. At least I hope not, because I kind of like where Marvel is right now. But yeah, I'm down. I'm always down to give something a shot, and it's a good jumping on point, right? If you're wanting to get back into comics, where do I start? These kind of things are good places to jump on.
Totally.
Yeah, and I agree. I think I hope as well it's not going to be like a Secret Wars style wipe the entire publishing line and it's only these
Right.
things for now. But I've been following Jason Aaron's Avengers, and I love Jason Aaron as a writer. It's no secret for anyone who watches this show, and every episode, every issue. See, I'm getting the words issue and episode mixed up now all of a sudden. Every issue of his Avengers feels like the next blockbuster movie. I loved his vampire arc, and so I love the fact that Blade is kind of the crux character of this weird story, and you can tell throughout the entirety of Aaron's Avengers run so far, he's been itching to use the Squadron Supreme so much, and it still makes me laugh every time people go, "Why is Wonder Woman in a Marvel book?" And it's like, okay, that's Power Princess, but obviously it is a huge pastiche of the Justice League characters, so it'll be very cool to see. And the fact that I think this is really going to be Phil Coulson's kind of first he's been in the Marvel comics for a little while now, but I think this is going to be the first time that he's like really kind of forefront, and he's not a good dude. He's pretty evil in the comics right now. So I'm looking forward to it, as long as it's not like an overbearing rewrite everything going on. But I think this will be more one of those. It's feeling half What If and half Amalgam comics, because we've got
right.
Dr. Juggernaut. Like, what the heck? I have to see what's going on with that. And I like the I think she's called Silver Witch. And so people thought she was Jean Grey and Wanda, but I think it's Quicksilver and Wanda put into one character. So that'll be pretty cool to see. I'm a sucker for those kinds of mashups and alternate universe stories. So I trust that they're going to deliver a good one with that.
It's funny that you mentioned Coulson, because I'm not reading Jason Aaron's Avengers, but I love Jason Aaron stuff. But I'm reading Taskmaster, which has been surprisingly awesome.
Thank you.
Coulson is in there, and Coulson is like the Squadron Supreme's like manager or something like that, or like he's like their Nick Fury or something. And I love that Taskmaster. I love seeing Phil Coulson in the comics. He fits so well in that world. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little more excited for Heroes Reborn.
Yeah, he did definitely have a falling out with the Avengers in the Avengers series, and was like, all right, we're gonna do PR for the Squadron Supreme, who definitely need a little bit of TLC in terms of their public image. But yeah, that's and he's got some dealings with Mephisto as well. And so that triptych image we pulled up on the news segment, you can see hidden in one of the corners, Mephisto is lurking, because he's been messing with the Marvel universe for a while.
Pulling some strings as of late.
Man, it seems like they're liking Mephisto. I'm seeing a lot of Mephisto stuff happening everywhere lately. So
just saying,
interesting.
Y'all might see him on a screen very soon. But, well, it looks like we're gonna bring Jazz back on, because now we're starting to get the questions rolling, and the shyness has weared off. So Jazz, what's our next question there?
Yeah, Tenchi Misaki from the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group wants to know, okay, I have a question. Who is the one writer who isn't currently working on a title that you really want to see putting out a new series, be it their own IP or something from a bigger property?
Ooh. See, I was so ready. Like, I've been reading that question, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what writer, but I didn't read the one part that said that is currently not working on a title.
Right. I'm thinking that too, because like I love Jeff Lemire, and I think he is only working on one title right now, which I think is Family Tree. But then you got to think, okay, is Garth Ennis working on anything? I don't think he's working on anything right now. Or he might be working on Dear Becky from Dynamite. So I think some of these powerhouse names are kind of have a little thing they're working on, but nothing like that's really big right now, right?
Right. Yeah. That's
so who else?
So I think I know my answer, and Amy probably knows who this is. And it's probably, I'd say I'd like to see Jeff Johns do something right now.
Oh yeah, and he did Killing Joke was amazing.
Yeah, it was so good.
I mean, not Killing Joke, Three Jokers.
Three Jokers, yeah, which was the last thing that he'd done. But I want to see him over on like Image. I want to see him do something where he can take that big world building and sort of put it to that tone that he does have a darker tone when he writes stuff. If you've read any of his Green Lantern run, he has no problem killing characters off. He brings them back and whatnot. Of course, yeah, Blackest Night. He loves like that dark tone. So I'd like to see Jeff Johns sort of get his own IP worked on over on Image. I think that would be really cool, and sort of maybe reinvigorate his brand as well. Would be I think that's my go-to answer. That's the hill I'm dying on.
Well, Paul, I think you're in luck, because I think he is working on a project with Image. It's something that was supposed to come out on DC, but now he's bringing it over to Image. I can't for the life of me remember the titles. The comments will probably let us know.
Yeah, someone will. I thought that was something he was doing with Jason Fabic, maybe.
Yeah, but it's going to be on Image. Yeah.
Oh, all right. That worked
Jeff
out.
Johns. So then you got Grant Morrison. I think, is he doing Far Sector, Amy?
Far Sector is N.K. Jemisin.
Okay, so he was doing the Green Lantern run.
Writer.
Yeah, the season, like the season. So I think he's on season 2 right now, and he might just be doing that. I'm not really sure.
See, my answer to this question feels weird, because first of all, I can't remember if he's working on something right now, but I know that so my pick is Brian K. Vaughan, but I know that he's on hiatus from Saga, and so I feel bad answering. I want to see him do more, because I know they're taking a hiatus to kind of take a break. So I don't want to say you need to be working more, but I'd love to see some more stuff from him, because in the interim with Saga, I'm really missing Paper Girls too, and I know that had a fantastic conclusion, and so it's just like, okay, I need my next Brian K. Vaughan fix, please.
I think it's safe to say he needs to start working on Saga. But you know what's funny? I think I saw a tweet recently that saying Saga will return soon or something like that. So, we got the first half of Saga. We're getting the second part, and I'm excited for that one for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, they deserve all the break they can get, but the Saga machine really, I mean, it really redefined the standard for how many books release before you put out a trade and just being on like clockwork. And so I know that they need probably some time to build back up to that. But yeah, I
for
mean, I'm
sure.
also really missing Fiona Staples. So it's like, come on, get the dream team back together.
I mean, they even had Funko Pops. It's like, man, Saga was big.
Yeah, I've got the flocked goose and I've got one of the many lying cats. I think they put out like 3 or 4 different little lying cats. But yeah, they made it.
I
When
do
you,
have
when you get a Funko Pop, you know you've made it.
You're big time. That's what I'm saying.
Waiting on that Comics Hall Gem Mint Funko Pop. If they would just email us back. All right, now it looks like we have another one before we move on a little bit. Jazz, we have one more question, right?
Yeah. Scott Subnewski from YouTube wants to know, what character would you like to see get a new run? For him, it's Moon Knight.
Oh. Yeah, I have a feeling Moon Knight, that new run for Moon Knight's probably coming sooner rather than later. Knowing Marvel, what they did with Shang-Chi, Eternals, the new Black Widow series, that's all probably coming very soon.
Yeah.
Oh man, Chris put me on the spot here. I was just reacting, but
just the other day I saw somebody say Donny Cates for Moon Knight, and I think that would be great because Donny Cates loves to do like this big, exciting stuff, and I think he would do a great job on Moon Knight. And that character does need a nice ongoing. Black Panther needs a nice ongoing. I mean, it's crazy how he doesn't have like this long ongoing series, such a popular character. So we need a Black Panther run for sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Donnie's really good with adding new lore to the characters in a way that like refreshes them. I mean, I'm having a really fun time with the Donald Blake stuff in the Thor right now. And at first, like I gotta be honest, when they solicited it, I was like, that's not how Donald Blake works. But I'm like, do I care how Donald Blake works? I mean, a frog got to be Thor at one point. Like, I don't care if it's a good story, just tell it to me. And I'm loving what he's doing with Donald Blake. But for me, I think, and again, kind of in the same vein as Moon Knight, She-Hulk needs another ongoing series. I know we've got her tied up in some of the Hulk books right now, and she's been, she's had a one-shot, and she was in Empire, but She-Hulk needs an ongoing series. But in terms of a character who I don't think has ever had a series, because I know the question was new run, again, I'm going to say it till the day I die, Elsa Bloodstone needs a series. I know she's in Deadpool right now, but Elsa Bloodstone needs her own book. And I'm not going to get into it, but she needs her own book.
Hey, somebody's got a champion for these characters, so get it trending, right?
Yes. I mean, okay, so I think I had a couple answers. Like on Marvel, I need a Doctor Strange book. It went away during the middle of the pandemic with issue 7. I had it on pre-order, and then it ended with 6, which is fine. But Doctor Strange is my favorite Marvel character, so we definitely need to bring that back. But for DC, I think I'd probably either want like a maxi series, Strange Adventures, Vision-esque, of Booster Gold. I think there's a lot of because it's time traveling, I think there's a lot of room there to make that book not what people probably think it will be. Or I'd love a Wildcat book, from over on DC, where it's basically just him running a superhero gym where he teaches everyone to box.
Those are some interesting picks.
Thank you. Yeah,
no, I like that.
I don't know why I like those characters specifically, but yeah,
hey, you like what you like.
You like what you like. But thank you, everyone. Again, we'll try to get to as many of these questions as we can. We're really just halfway through the show, so if you guys have any questions or anything, honestly, let us know. But we did bring Gem here because he is going to shed some light on a topic that a lot of us, not a lot of us, I mean, really, I don't want to speak for the whole room, but I personally don't know all that much about, and that we don't cover that much on the Comics Hall, and that is omnibus editions and collecting omnibus editions. So, Gem, if you could really kick us off in one.
Yeah.
What is an omnibus?
Sure. I'd love to. This is like one of my favorite formats. When I found this format to begin with, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So just to give you guys an example, these are 2 omnis or omnibus that were released today. Now, this is the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, and it's the third printing, which means it went to print, it sold out, started selling for crazy prices on the aftermarket, so they went and did a second print. Same thing happened. So the third print comes out today. This collects Amazing Spider-Man 39 through 67, Annuals 3 and 5, and the Spectacular Spider-Man 1 and 2, which were those magazine-style Spectacular Spider-Man formats or comics. They're oversized, so if you want to compare it to a regular comic book, you get oversized artwork.
Oh, cool.
And I just love the fact that you can collect Amazing Spider-Man, well, Amazing Fantasy 15, and then Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 100 in these hardcover volumes that look great on your shelf. They reprint this material. It's not a dirty book from the 60s where it's like everything's faded and the pages are cream or whatever. So I just really like that format. This one is the reprint. It's only the second printing for Captain America by Ed Brubacher, which is basically the script for Captain America Winter Soldier. This is another book that it went out of print, and when it goes out of print, you can only buy them on the aftermarket, eBay or whatever, and it would sell for way over cover price, which, by the way, on these books can be like $100 to like $150. So this one comes out today. Don't miss it at your local shop, or if you purchase wherever you purchase. It's a great run, even if you've already seen Winter Soldier, which I'm sure everybody has. With things that are adapted into film, the books are always better. So this is how you could pick up his whole run in one hardcover book.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thank you, man.
Brubaker's Cap is one of those gold standard books
Yes,
for sure.
for the character.
So, looking at it from here, you've got a couple of omnibus editions behind you. So
Just a
where
few.
did so you obviously collect week to week as well, but where did the collection grow from omnibuses? Was it out of like necessity, like you just needed to read something so you picked that up, or is it something different?
No, that's a good question. So at the time, I was collecting key issues, like graded comic books like CGC, CBCS, and I was into Spider-Man. He's always been one of my favorite characters. So I'm collecting older issues. I'm trying to get keys. And then one day I walked into my local comic shop and I saw volume 1 of Amazing Spider-Man, and it just caught my eye. And it has volume 1 is issues 1 through 38. And then I think the first annual or whatever. So I just couldn't believe that all these key issues that I was, struggling to try to collect. It's an expensive hobby. There all of these issues you could read right here in this hardcover. So I don't know. I picked it up. Then I picked up the Infinity Gauntlet. And what's cool about Omnibus is that you're either going to get like a storyline like Infinity Gauntlet, and it's going to come with the main story, the prequel issues like Thanos Quest, all the prequel like Silver Surfer issues. It has all the tie-ins, all like the post-event issues, and it just has everything in an event. Like Empire is coming out with an omnibus that has every tie-in, the main story, even stuff that wasn't even published, like the Thor tie-ins. I know Paul's looking forward to that one. Or they'll do like an entire run from a creative team. So basically like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, Stan Lee and John Romita on Spider-Man. So you can either get the consecutive run or you can collect, by the events. So I don't know. It drew me in as a way to collect the entire run in just 1 or 2 hardcover books.
Right.
They because like a key issue or buying monthly, that is an investment, and it's I mean, they look absolutely beautiful on your shelf and your display, but they are an investment. They are collectible, as with books that, like, to bring up our famous example of Daredevil 25, go into multiple printings due to demand. It's a incredibly accessible way to, and like you pointed out, they're not cream colored pages. It looks like the art has even been revitalized in the oversized format, and so it is a way to collect, have all these issues that are hard to track down or out of print, and it's something that you can read, but it is something that you can display and just hold on to as a collectible in and of itself. And I do like that they have the multiple printing covers. I know that there was a Thor omnibus that I almost caved on just because Russell Dodderman did the cover. I did not pick that one up. I might be kicking myself over that later, but just these collected editions. And if anyone remembers when we did cover an omnibus, we covered the War of the Realms omnibus. I did the math for you guys because I bought every single issue individually. The omnibus was less than half the price. Math is hard, but it was half as cheap if not even more so than someone who bought every single issue individually. It was charged sales tax on that and has the whole collection. And it's just this beautiful collected edition. So that's really
Yeah,
cool.
because
And it's something I wish
single
we could
issues
cover more on our show.
single issues are getting expensive, right? You're talking $3.99, $4.99, and things like that.
Standard.
So
Yeah.
right. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's a great point, because on this channel, most of the viewers are going to be statue collectors, figure collectors, some kind of collector that displays things in, detolfs and what have you. So it's a great point about the omnibus. You're able to display them. I had, and I still do, but tons and tons of white short boxes that were just, bland to look at. So to be able to like have this library look of colorful spines was just another con on the pro to con, another pro on the pro to con table.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's just having a library and also being able to easily reference and go, okay, I know which numbers are in which volume, instead of filing through the short boxes. I've currently got more than I can handle in terms of long boxes. I've got a couple long boxes stacked on each other, and then when they get too heavy to do that, it's so embarrassing. So it's just like, it's a really cool way to have that displayed, and it is like a have your cake and eat it too kind of owning the book. It is a displayable, collectible version, but it's also entirely readable, because that's what it's there for as well.
Right.
Just don't read it with the dust jacket on. You got to take that dust jacket off. And it is pretty. Sometimes people ask me, how do you read those? They're so big, they're so heavy. But I mean, look, you can pick one hand and just flip through it.
Yeah.
But what's funny? Like when I started getting into the omnibus, I got out of single issues because I started like putting my focus towards this collection. But I started to feel like I was left behind on what was current in comics. So that's why I ended up picking up comics again. It's like now I'm collecting both, and the short boxes are getting out of hand.
You got the best of both worlds going on.
It's
There
true,
you
though.
go.
Yeah, it's first world problems for sure.
So with so Gem, so like I mean, obviously you're no stranger to the investment of collectibles and like the monetary and the space, the monetary investment and the space that they take up. So
Mhm.
with reading comics, like for me, you would mention that I'm excited for Empire. Like for me, I know I'm getting that because I read all of the books. I'm when they came out, this summer. I want to read some of that Thor stuff that we didn't get to see. So that's how I know it's time for me. I'm like, okay, I want to pick up this omnibus. But you have, quite a catalog there. When do you know you're like, okay, this is the book I want? Like, what do you look for in an omnibus to make sure, like, okay, this is going to hit your shelf?
So I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm the type of collector that goes overboard and I have to have everything. So I
Nice.
put together this collection over some years. And it started with just getting the ones that you love, and then it started with getting the ones that kind of go with those, and then it's just started becoming, you know what, you might as well just get all of them at this point. So at this point, for me, when I look at like my new, what's coming out for weekly comics, I also look at the hardcovers just to see what new omnis are coming out.
Mhm.
So I'm a bad example because I just tend to pick up everything, because not only is it nice to have the history on the shelf, like I might not ever get to my Golden Age Superman omnibus to read, but I don't know, just there is monetary value in them, especially if you know how to shop for these. You can get them for well below cover price online when they release, and
Mhm.
then they typically sell out and become more valuable than more than cover price. So I look at it like a win-win,
Mhm.
and I have the channel so I can showcase them and do content. So for me, it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's great because you have with the substantial audience you have in not only statues but in comics, there's gonna be someone out there that maybe it's the first time they've ever watched your channel, or maybe any content, realistically any content that has to do with comics, and maybe that omnibus is what kicks open the door for them to start getting back into the hobby or into comics. So I could totally see where picking up omnibuses, we'll say it's not just for the aesthetic and the history. Like it could, especially on your channel, and maybe one day on this channel, it could inspire people to get them. Like Amy, I mean, we had someone who bought the War of the Realms omnibus.
Yeah. After they saw how much of a fool I was, and they said, "I don't want to be like that girl." No, that was fantastic, and that's one of my favorite stories from the recent years. And I'm enjoying King in Black because it's got some of those heavy metal vibes that War of the Realms did too. I really like
Yeah.
that cosmic fantasy stuff. But yeah, I mean, Omnibus, I look forward to, Paul, your first foray when you do pick up Empire, and I will be asking if I could borrow it to read the Thor content that we didn't get. But yeah, it's just another way to collect and read comics, and if it draws you into the hobby, again, we always say that there's no wrong way to come into this hobby unless you are downloading books illegally. That is the wrong way to do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
If you're supporting a store, you're supporting the creators, you're checking out these books, it doesn't matter if you've got the floppy copies or you're trade waiting or you're picking up the
That's true.
omnis. Just do whatever serves you best and what you love. That's the right way to read comics.
Right. Exactly. Read what you love.
Good point.
So
And the rest will follow.
and the rest will follow. Yes. And and then one day you too might get to do a show with Gem Mint. So so Gem, I'm also always curious too, like aside from Omnis as well, have you been because I'm a bad example of this question. I can't speak for Amy, but have you been a consistent comic book reader? Like you've been reading for the last 20 years, or have you been popping in and out of books? Like you said you did with omnibuses where you felt like you were behind. So, I mean, have you just been
Yep.
reading books for forever?
No, I took a big break. I was really into comics as a kid. Really, the trading cards got me into the comic hobby
Oh,
altogether. Like
Nice.
the Marvel masterpieces, the Marvel universe, and I loved the cards so much that I wanted to read more about the characters. So I started going to the comic shop, started buying Spawn, started buying trade paperbacks like Maximum Carnage, Death of Superman, and books like that. And then I think I got out of it when I went to like high school. During the teenager years, I kind of got out of it. Interest went to other things. And then when I became an adult and I got a job and a career and I found out what eBay was, I went and I bought those trading cards I had as a kid. And then I started buying the first appearances because now I have like adult money, right? So now I can actually buy the first appearance that's on the back of this trading card. And then that's how I got into collecting that and getting them graded. And then that's when I said, you know what, let me go back to the comic shop and start picking up the weekly books again. So I got back into reading comics around the Dan Slott Spider-Man era, the Rick Remender Agent Venom era. And what else was around that time? Spawn was doing all those homage covers. I think, yeah, Todd McFarlane was like back on doing covers. So that's when I got back into it, and I've been going strong since then.
Nice. And then, yeah, it just goes to show, I mean, like, I started reading books in 2012, and I'm very open about the fact that I actually picked up, I mean, I was reading Bart Simpson comics. That doesn't really count, I feel, as like in terms of a lengthy comic library, but I picked up my first books for Sirius after the Avengers film came out, and I was so into it. And they hit with Matt Fraction's Hawkeye right around that time, and so it was like that was the perfect way to get in. And I haven't stopped since, but that's the thing. We've asked it in our Holler at the Hall questions before, but people come and go from comics. But if it's something that brings you joy, hopefully there's always a way back into it. So that's I love the trading cards. That's awesome.
Oh man, that's awesome. Now, before we let Gem go back on with his day and let him get back to reading, first and foremost, sir, we really wanted to thank you for partnering with us on the giveaway that we have going right now on our channels and on your channel. We have if we could bring up that the asset really fast so everyone can see it real fast. It's for the 1/10 scale Wolverine by Iron Studios. Oh man, look at that. That thing is great.
Awesome.
I know, Gemma, you were saying you've got a lot of that in that diorama in on pre-order already.
Yeah, I have the Sentinel dioramas on pre-order. I cannot wait. That's my most anticipated statue for this year. And Iron Studios, they do a great job with these 1/10 scale pieces, man. So much detail packed into these little statues.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that they're covering so many comic book characters that, especially in this battle diorama scale, that don't get as much of a focus. I mean, Wolverine gets a focus, but all the X-Men that are included in this general collection. So you guys see Wolverine, and he is leaping off of the piece of a Sentinel that has destroyed the floor of the X-Mansion. This is a standalone piece, but it is based on the artwork for the larger Sentinel diorama. So we are giving that away. And Paul, do you want to kind of explain where people can go to enter that giveaway?
Yeah, please, everyone, right now, this giveaway is going to be live from right this second. It's been live pretty much all day. I'm sure a lot of you, if you've seen Gem Mint's video earlier on his weekly haul. If not, you should do that. Just look up Gem Mint Collectibles on YouTube, and that video is the first video there. It's awesome. But also this giveaway ends this Sunday, which is the 31st, and it ends at 11:59. So 11:59 Pacific, or as we like to say, Sideshow Standard Time. So that is 11:59. That ends this Sunday. We'll reveal the winner on our channels. We'll make sure that Gem knows who the winner is. He can announce it on his channels. It'll be everywhere. So you'll know if you won, we promise. So you can head over to side.show/comics haul Gem Mint. That's side.show/comics haul Gem Mint for that giveaway. And again, Gem, thank you so much for partnering with us on that, man. I know it's a great piece, and as we always say, it's a bummer, but none of us can win it. So
I already went on the site and entered in my wife's name. But no, thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. It's so cool to have my name in the Sideshow address. I was like, wait a minute. That's cool, man.
And now, sir, before we let you get on with the rest of your day and get back to, I'm sure you've got a lot of books to read. I can see them behind you. So before you get back, we do have one last question specifically for you. This is from M. Stainbrook on YouTube. He wants to know, how many omnibuses do you actually have?
Oh, man. So I actually did a video on this where I had my daughter do it. I was like, hey, why don't you count all these books for me? So I have the total number, and then I went through them, and I actually went through and how many I read, and I had my read percentage, which is embarrassingly low. So I don't have the number off the top of my head. I want to say it was somewhere around like 600 hardcovers.
Nice.
Wow, that was
600.
not the number I was expecting. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It does count like deluxe editions, like Paper Girls, like you mentioned, and some absolute editions, but the majority of them are the omnibus.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sorry, 600. That kind of just blew my mind.
Me too. Yeah, it kind of left me a little speechless. It doesn't happen on this show very often, but that left me speechless.
Wow.
We did have to move across state one time too, and that wasn't fun.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I'm still kind of reeling over 600. That's a lot.
Sink in. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Hey, well, Gem, seriously, man, thank you so much for being on the show with us. We really, really appreciate it. And before we get to our normal outros, we wanted to just, again, thank you so much. We'll let you know, so you can let you know who all of these giveaway, well, I would say giveaway winners, but it's just the one winner. But and again, unfortunately, none of them is us. So Gem, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your really, really busy schedule to come on the Comics Hall with us.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Stay on the line. We're going to switch the camera screen, but stay on the audio, and we will catch you afterwards to, again, just kind of debrief. That was so cool. I mean,
yes.
I mean, we like to think of ourselves as collectors here, but then there are those who are collectors.
Yes, our collector sensei, also known as Gem Mint. Yeah, I mean, it's so cool. I mean, to have him on, and I think the reason that me and Amy really wanted to bring Gem on specifically is because a lot of you are probably already well aware of him and his awesome channels. Again, pretty much Gem Mint Collectibles everywhere you can find them. But also we were really interested, of course, on his comic book knowledge and the comic book side of his channel. Naturally, for some reason, maybe has to do with that title up there. But yeah, we're again, Gem, thank you so much. And if you were here, if it's your first time watching the show and you came over with Gem, thank you for watching the show with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, if there were any Geminites who are first-time Comics Hall viewers, thank you guys so much for watching. Super cool to just have that interplay of, again, statues and comics and collecting, because it's all connected, as Feige says about the Marvel Universe. It's all connected.
Yes, he does.
But there are so many different things to kind of consider with the display of comic books and statues. And that's another thing a lot of you guys in the comments like to bring up is displaying your books with the characters, the physical representations of them. Now, speaking of physical representations, we do have our Holler at the Hall question for this week. We asked you guys, do you have any comic book tattoos?
Mm-hmm.
This is a fun one. We've actually got some pictures to go along. So if we got those assets to pull up, we've got a response from Cody Edwards in the Facebook group. Lovely moderator with an incredible tattoo of a very specific Captain America panel. Cody did post the actual panel artwork in the Facebook group alongside this tattoo. But
Yes.
as I joked earlier, this tattoo artist had to be the penciler, inker, colorist, and letterer all at the same time for this really nice, really cool cap tattoo.
Yeah, that tattoo is so sick. And then we also had some responses that were not just of pictures. We had Chris and Luann Robinson said, I'm sorry, I have a faded Spider-Man tattoo from Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale's Spider-Man Blue, issue 1. It's faded and it needs to be touched up.
Yeah, there was unfortunately no picture with that, but
No.
very cool. Can kind of imagine. I love when people do get tattoos in other artists' styles as well. That's a really cool thing to see people imitate the line art. Kelsey Lynn Clary has the X-Men logo on her arm, and she provided a photograph of that as well. Just kind of a classic. I know Kelsey. Kelsey is a huge X-Men fan, especially Rogue and Gambit. So that's cool to have the X-Men insignia, because every good X-Men, every good mutant has that insignia somewhere on their costume or goodness knows where. So Kelsey Lynn Clary has the X-Men logo tattooed. That's a pretty solid one to have. Just a nice, classy design.
Just, you can always look down and remember your fandom. It never hurts.
And we also asked if people didn't have a tattoo, because a lot of people did, and they described them or sent pictures. If you didn't have one, what would you consider getting? And Paul, do you want to read our last response?
Yes, over on our Instagram, Brizzy Draco said, I don't have one yet, but I would definitely get something Venom or Batman related. So there's a lot within those two properties that you can really choose from. And I'm sure whatever she ends up getting eventually, it's going to be awesome. So yeah. And that about Amy, what about you before we wrap up?
So I don't have one. I'm a weenie when it comes to needles, but I think if I ever got one, it would definitely have to be something from Jason Aaron's Thor run, and specifically, I would want it to be Russell Dodderman's version of Mjolnir, because every artist draws Mjolnir differently, but Russell Dodderman's version of Mjolnir is my favorite.
It's your Mjolnir.
Yeah. It is my Mjolnir, and we were inspired of this question. I didn't put it on today for the show. I chickened out, but a couple of weeks ago when King in Black #1 came out, comic book stores were giving out temporary tattoos of the tattoo variant cover. There was a little really cool Venom with Null's sword going through it and the symbiote going all over the place. So if you happened to get one of the King in Black temporary tattoos, shout it out. Maybe I'll put mine on this weekend and put a picture in the Facebook group. But I was afraid it wasn't going to show up, because the worst thing would have been to be like, look, guys, it's on my hand, and then have my hand disappear. Of course, my hand's not disappearing now.
Sure, Amy, it's on your hand.
But I was afraid that my hands would disappear in the video, and then no one would believe me. Paul, what about you? Comic book tattoos, wishful thinking?
Yeah, so I've always wanted the Green Lantern oath because of course. But I'd also like maybe somewhere the Eye of Vishanti, or as everyone knows, like the very from Doctor Strange, the very noticeable insignia that he's got everywhere. It's Eye of Vishanti, the symbol of Agamotto, whatever you want to call it. Like, I've always wanted that somewhere. I just don't know yet. Like, as we'd said, forehead maybe. So you never know. Is a third eye. Yes. But yeah, that would probably be one of those two things.
Very cool. Well, if you guys have comic book tattoos, you're seeing this now and you're like, wait, I want to share some, hit us up in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. You can go to side.show/geek for that. Now, because we weren't able to get to your responses last week, we are recycling our Holler at the Hall question. We're going to bump it up on our channels. You guys can answer there, and we will be pulling from some of the old answers. So if you already answered, you don't have to answer again. But next week, we will be covering the topic of artists who drew you back into comics, pun intended, whether or not it was for your first time and the artist that kind of inspired you to become a reader the first time around, or if it was somebody who got your attention again, like we were discussing with Gem Mint, because people come in and out of comics all the time, and it could be a particular story, a writer, or an artist who draws you back in. But this time we want to talk about artists. We did talk about writers before the new year. So if you already answered, we've got your answers, your responses, but we will be bumping that up for our next week's show.
Yes.
And we'll bring back panel of the week next week as well. For the record, Paul won Scarlet Witch and the Vision, but I don't think that one counts because we didn't do the show.
All right. All right, everyone. Thank you all so much. And again, huge thank you to Gem Mint and all the Geminites out there. Welcome. We hope you stick around. If not, seriously, we really appreciate you watching, and just we're glad you're all reading, and we're all comic book nerds with you. So
And don't
again,
enter that giveaway, which will
yes,
be live for the podcast listeners. You guys still have a chance till
oh
Sunday,
yeah,
the 31st, to enter.
mhm.
If you're listening on the podcast playback, you can check that out as well. But you guys still have some time to enter for that 10th scale Wolverine statue from Iron Studios.
Over at side.show/Comics Hall Gem Mint. And you can find us anywhere at the Comics Hall. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can always email us all of your compliments, or how I definitely won last week's panel of the week, even though we didn't have a show. So that's at thecomicshall@sideshow.com. Amy, take us out.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And again, thank you, Gem Mint. As always, I'm Amy.
And I'm Paul.
And this has been the Comics Hall.
Boom, boom.